I believe we are all the way live. I'm not sure. My producers. All right, we're Gucci to go. Okay. Hello, my YouTube followers. How we doing today? It is the Cemetery Man, the Salem Man. I already ruined up my intro. All right, so basically, I was rushed into this because my email wouldn't log in and we couldn't get YouTube working. But that's why, I'm a couple minutes late today. Sorry. It's an imperfect world. It's an imperfect place, but it is the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names and kicking ass. Live on Ram Nation Radio, YouTube Live, not Facebook Live, because, we've moved on to the 21st century, right? Here we are today. I'm here to discuss one of my all-time favorite horror movie trilogies. That is, of course, the Gates of Hell trilogy. One of my all-time favorite horror movie trilogies. I'm also going to I just wanted to get my Instagram live going up on here just because this has just been a whole mad dash for the border here. So let's just go live on Insta. And we're now live on Insta. Okay. I don't know how good or not Insta will be able to see me, but we're here. We're in living color. We're ready to discuss one of my favorite all-time horror movie trilogies. But before we get to that, I wanted to do a little bit of an unboxing of a very special package that I got today in the mail on eBay. Yes, this is a legendary package. I'm going to unbox it. It's basically, it's not too far from the unboxing part. It's a puzzle box of sorts, as Hannah said before. Shout out to Hannah. This is the ultimate puzzle box of extreme pleasure. And yeah, just extreme pleasure for today. But it is this awesome thing I won on eBay in a bidding war with this jabroni who was trying to outbid me. I don't have the goddamn... I might need to use my keys here to unlock this damn thing. Hold on. Okay. We're using this son of a bitch. We'll see if I can key this son of a bitch open. Okay, we're getting there. Okay. I think we're Gucci. Little bit more. This is a pain in my arse. But while I'm unboxing this son of a bitch, I'm basically going to get to like all the stuff I've been watching and stuff like that on the show today. It's going to be super fun. All right. And we got this son of a bitch open live on camera. All right. Took me long enough. All right, here they are. Oh boy, this is the ultimate flipping set right here. Oh wow, this is sweet. I want to thank my buddy. What the hell's his name? William? Yeah, William is the guy's name that sent me these from Michigan. 2 days later, it's at my doorstep. It is the Hellraiser quadrilogy right here. The original 4 movies, the only 4 movies that are really connected in the saga. He's got this thing bubble wrapped like it's a goddamn football or something. Like he's got it bubble wrapped like it's an autographed football. I wanted to be able to take this out too. I don't know. He's got this really wrapped well. Damn. Okay, so we're gonna have to go backwards this way. Bear with me, folks. I'm getting them out. These are in mint condition, by the way. I didn't think they'd be in this good of condition. But, yeah, the bubble wrap is gone. And here we are with, of course, the original Hellraiser on VHS. Cool gold little cover there around the sides and stuff like that. Mint condition VHS tape on the back, of course. This is really, really cool. Actually, always wanted to get the Scarlet box set, which is from Arrow. It went out of print very, very soon after it was in print. And now it goes for like $300 on the internet, which is stupid money for just 3 movies on Blu-ray. But, with Hellraiser movies, especially the first 3, I think those are the 3 best ones. And I think those are the 3 classics. So I understand. I had been forever wanting those 3 on Blu-ray from eBay. And I had been bidding wars over them. I had tried time and time again to get them, but unfortunately I was never successful. So when I saw the VHSs pop up, I was like, I am winning this goddamn bidding war. And me and this guy went back and forth for about a week straight. And then in the last few seconds, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to hold off on bidding and outbid him in the last second so he can't outbid me. And basically I waited till like 40 seconds before the bidding ended, outbid him by $1, and I hung on for the 40 seconds. So I got these bad boys for $31 altogether. A pretty cool set. Yeah, here's the second one. I did the math. It's like $7.75 per movie. for $31, which is not bad at all. I mean, less than $8 per movie is actually a pretty sweet deal, I think. And considering I actually don't own any of these on DVD, Blu-ray, VHS, nothing. Like I didn't own any of these prior, and I just thought, like, why not go retro with this and really, have a fun Halloween, popping these retro VHS tapes in. This is the second one, Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, and this one has the same gold-plated kind of rim, which I really, really enjoy. I think it's kind of cool. It's really cool packaging. And I will say these are in pretty mint condition. I don't know how well y'all can see. I know there's a little bit of a glare on the Instagram live, but yeah, this is pretty cool. Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, probably my second. It might even be my favorite of the at least these four, probably of the franchise. Definitely up there with the first one. And this one I love too. It is Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. Love this movie. I've always loved this movie. This is a Paramount release, actually. If you guys are curious, this is what the tapes look like. Pretty cool, right? I know, a little retro. I dig these, man. I dig getting retro horror movie VHSs because, I don't know, they add a certain nostalgic feel for me. And, there's nothing better than nostalgia when you're talking about the genre. I mean, it's just super, super cool that I got these on VHS tape. And Hellraiser 3 is going to be one I'll be watching this to death. I'll let you know that right now, because this was really the one where they went with Pinhead being the franchise. Like this was the attempt to make Pinhead the next Jason, the next Freddy, the next Michael. And, unfortunately, I don't really think that happened, because Bloodline is the movie that really killed the franchise. And I don't think we haven't had a movie to go in the theater from the Hellraiser franchise since Part 4. So that movie really did kill it off. But that was Hellraiser 3. And then, of course, like I just said, the movie that kind of killed the franchise. This is a Alan Smithy film, I believe. Yes, and it's even credited on the back as an Alan Smithy film. This is Hellraiser Bloodline. I have only seen this once. This came out 1996, the year I was born. Only runs about 81 minutes long. It's super short. That's barely feature length. It's a feature length by a minute. Yeah, I remember this being pretty much a big snooze fest, if I'm remembering right. One of the quotes on the front says the most terrifying of all. Yeah, one of the most terrifyingly bad of all. It's not like Hellraiser 9 bad or Hellraiser Deader bad, but like it's bad from what I remember. I always remember my friend CK from Dead Pit. He always said he went to the theater and fell asleep watching this, like in the theater, which is, I find that really goddamn funny, because like that's never happened to me in my entire life where I fell asleep in a theater. But it happened all CK because that movie was so horrendously bad. So yeah, I thought these were really cool. I wanted to unbox. I can give you the side view here of all of them. Like this. Got, of course, oh God, this is not easy to hold. You got Mr. Bradley on the side. Always love to see Doug Bradley on the side. And honestly, I get enjoyment out of 3 of these 4 movies, like a lot of enjoyment out of the first 3. And it'll be fun to revisit Part 4. Maybe I'll find something I like in it, or maybe I'll hate it even more. Who knows? But yeah, these were super cool to get on VHS. Shout out to that guy. They look like they're in mint condition. I'll probably watch the original tonight after work sometime. It's one I've been meaning to rewatch. I really, really love the original Hellraiser. And who knows, maybe I'll review these 4 next week on the show or something like that, and I can go from there. But I've been watching so much horror, man. Like over the past 10 days of October, like I have literally watched like an average of 2 a day. Like it's crazy. You ask my good buddy Brandon, I've been with him for a couple of those days, and he's like, dude, you are the most dedicated horror movie fanatic I know, because like you've just been watching mad movies. And I figured I'd get into all the stuff I've been watching towards the end, because I really wanted to focus on the feature review of the Gates of Hell trilogy and Lucio Fulci, because it's a guy that honestly, I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. And the only movies that really do get talked about are the ones I'm talking about today. But I wanted to look a little bit at his career. I'm not going to go like full reviews of his original works and stuff like that. I'm going to stick to the main 3. But I wanted this whole video to kind of be like a tribute to Mr. Fulci and his work in the genre. So we're going to get right into that right now. And then I'll end the show off with the stuff I've been watching this month, little mini reviews, stuff like that. So without further ado, Lucio Fulci, actually, what people don't even realize is he had started making movies in, I want to say, like the late 1950s, early 1960s. So he had been making movies for years. He'd been making like spaghetti westerns, family dramas, stuff like that. He wasn't always a horror filmmaker like an Argento, like a Romero, like a Carpenter. He actually explored so many different other genres, subgenres, and stuff like that. And it really wasn't until I would say about 1972 when he made a little movie called Don't Torture a Duckling. And Don't Torture a Duckling is a phenomenal little horror movie that nobody talks about. And it's actually much more along the lines of an Argento film. It feels much more like a giallo film than what these Gates of Hell trilogy movies feel like. But man, it's really good. It's the story of these kids, and they're getting murdered one by one by this unknown assailant, unknown killer, and they're trying to uncover who's doing the murders and stuff like that. It's a really good little horror movie, murder mystery, horror movie giallo, if you will. And it's kind of disturbing. It's a disturbing, scary little film. I won't lie. Like, I really like Don't Torture a Duckling. I believe it's like his highest rated film he ever did. And I was always a big fan of Don't Torture a Duckling. So if you haven't seen Don't Torture a Duckling, I highly recommend it. I'm not going to go full on in depth with a review here. Haven't seen it in a while, but I do remember it being a pretty kick-ass little movie. Also, he went on to do movies like The Psychic, and that's a good one. It's a little creepy, atmospheric little gem. But the one that really, I think, got him known in America more than even the Gates of Hell trilogy, probably his most famous movie, is this one. I brought this one with me. This is Zombie, aka Zombie 2, aka Zombie Flesh Eaters. There's 100 different names for this movie. I always call this movie Zombie 2 because it's basically Italian, the Italian version of Dawn of the Dead. It's like the sequel, the bastard cousin, if you will, of Dawn of the Dead. And it's basically Lucio Fulci remaking Dawn of the Dead with goblin score, with, over the top gore effects and stuff like that. And I always loved this movie. I think this is a phenomenal little zombie film. It's one of the most famous zombie films for a numerous amount of reasons. Everybody always remembers the zombie fighting the shark underwater. That's just one of the most badass scenes of all time because they used a real shark. Like, this was this was long before the days of CGI use in horror movies. This was long before they did stuff like that. So they really went all out to make this look as authentic as humanly possible. Of course, I always really loved the scene with the woman with the beautiful big green eyes as the zombie is chasing her throughout her house. And it grabs her by the back of the head and starts slowly pulling her towards the spike in the wall. And she's screaming. And what Fulci does is so brilliant. He pans back and forth between her eye and the stick that she's about to be stabbed with. And it's just so tension filled and it's so paced out beautifully. It's just, you cringe every time you're waiting for it to happen because you know it ain't going to end well for this lady. And man, as it gets closer, you're just like, oh, and then once you see the impalement, man, it is absolutely insane. He goes full out too. You see the actual stake driving through her eye and the gore and the screaming and the terror and all that stuff. Fulci was one of those guys, he always used as much as the real actor as he could. And man, that really helps when you're trying to make and pull off a good special effect in your film. And man, I think Zombie is one of those movies that just has amazing practical gore effects. I love this movie. It's super creepy, atmospheric, has a really good score to it. A darker score, I would say, than maybe the following couple, and a score that everyone remembers. And I always remember the scene towards the end where you actually get the cover where the zombies are walking towards New York City and you hear on the radio, "They're coming for us." And then the credits roll. I love that. Like, it was always a really fun way to end a cheesy little zombie movie like this. And I don't know. I think you got great gore. I think you got great music. I think you've got great suspense. Don't have the best characters in the world, but you've got some beautiful women in this. And you've got, a fun little zombie film. It's a really cool, spirited cousin, sequel, brother, sibling, what have you, to the original Dawn of the Dead. And I won't lie. This is a ripoff of Dawn of the Dead. But I think it's a very well done ripoff of Dawn of the Dead because it checks off all of the things that you want a ripoff to do. They're going to do the practical effects right. They're going to do the creepy aspect right. And they're going to pay homage. And that's what this movie does. I think this is an excellent little film, and it deserves the big cult following that it has. This is really the movie that made Fulci in America because people saw that and were like, holy crap, what else does this guy got? And his answer would be the following trilogy that he made, and it is known as the Gates of Hell trilogy. And the Gates of Hell trilogy all started with this little gem of a movie, City of the Living Dead, aka The Gates of Hell. In America, it's called City of the Living Dead. I always didn't really like that title that much. I think The Gates of Hell is the perfect title for this movie because it really is about the gates of hell. And this is the first film of the trilogy. I love this movie right off the bat. I rewatched this movie last night just for show prep. And man, every time I go back and rewatch this one, I always find stuff in it that just blows my mind at how good it is. And it's basically it's a very, very simplistic plot of it opens up with this seance. And this psychic girl is just losing her mind at the seance. She's seeing all these crazy things. And basically the last thing she sees before she faints is this priest hanging himself in a graveyard. And once she sees the priest hang himself in the graveyard, she collapses and they pronounce her dead at the scene. That's the opening 5 minutes of this movie. And you're just like, holy crap. Like, we're right off the bat. We're going right into this, full-blown seance, full-blown hanging, full-blown psychic fainting from the crazy stuff she's seen. And the pace really never slows down from there. I really like the pace of this movie. And basically, when the priest hangs himself, he ends up inadvertently opening the gates of hell in this city, in this graveyard, hence the City of the Living Dead title, hence the Gates of Hell title, opening up, and the zombies are coming after the living one by one. They're picking them all off. And like, this is just a super, super fun, simple little horror movie. And the thing I like about it most is it never loses its atmospheric feel. Like, from the word go, the atmosphere is just, you can cut the tension and atmosphere in this movie with a knife. I love it, man. You have an awesome scene where Catriona MacColl, who is the lead in all three of these Gates of Hell movies, she's an awesome, awesome scream queen, Catriona MacColl. I actually listened to a few interviews with her last night. She seems like the coolest lady ever. She got along with Fulci great. Beautiful woman, has beautiful, beautiful eyes. That's the one thing you'll notice in all of Fulci and Argento's film. They really cast a lot of beautiful women, but essentially they cast a lot of beautiful eyes. All of these movies have women with beautiful eyes in them, like beautiful, like dark green, light blue eyes and stuff like that. Like, you get all sorts of different looking women like that. And man, like, I don't know, it adds a certain aesthetic to your film that I would say a lot of American filmmakers don't even bother to do. Like, they're always looking in the boobs and the ass department. And like, I understand that. I'm cool with that, man. Like, I love the boobs and the ass department. But man, Fulci found some really good looking women too. There are a lot of good looking women in this movie, and they all have beautiful eyes. So that's a, little cherry on top of the pudding, if you know. But man, there's a scene where Catriona MacColl, she's buried under the ground in this coffin, and she's banging because she's not dead. She's, I'm alive, get me out of here. And man, this guy comes in to save her, and he's trying to get her out of the ground. So he uses a pickaxe, and he's just smacking the coffin with a pickaxe, and he's coming so close to her face. And man, it's funny. I feel like they're trying to get like will she suffocate or will he save her in time? It doesn't work that way at all. You're almost like, will he hit her with this pickaxe inadvertently or not? And I just love that, because you're like, holy crap. Like, you're worried about one thing and then bam, immediately worried about something else. And I thought that was super, super well done. And you have Giovanni Lamberto Radici running around in this movie. The character's name is Bob. There's Bobs in literally all of these movies. Fulci liked to use the name Bob a lot. I don't know if he disliked that name, because it seems like in every one, a character named Bob gets a pretty, untimely, bad demise, if you will. But man, I really love Giovanni Lamberto Radici in this one. This one, I always remember this movie. An awesome kill is the drill scene. There's a scene in this movie where Giovanni Lamberto Radici, he's like kind of like the gross, like pedophilish guy in town, and everybody doesn't like him. And like he hangs out with like blow up dolls and shit like that. Like, it's dark, like it's really weird. And basically this one night, this girl confronts him, and she's like, oh, what's going on? You look really scared and stuff. And basically he runs away from her, and she's scared to death by the priest that hung himself initially in the film. He's like the main antagonist of this movie. And she's literally scared to death just by looking him in the eye. She collapses and dies of death. The fear of just seeing this guy, which is an awesome death scene. Like, you wouldn't think it would work as well, but she just collapses from the fear of seeing him. It almost works as a Medusa effect. If anybody sees him for too long, they're ultimately going to die. And all the people in the town think Giovanni Lamberto Radici killed her. and the father comes after Giovanni looking for revenge. And man, it is a crazy scene. He puts Giovanni Lamberto Radici down on this like slab and starts this power drill towards his head, and it goes into his temple, and you see it all, man. It is one of the most gory death scenes, and to this day, in my opinion at least, looks super real. It's scary how real this death scene looks. Like, I was blown away the first time I saw it, and to this day I can't even figure out how they did it. Like, there are scenes where you see they have like a wax cast of his head, but that's only like, I would say 20% of the scene. 80% of the scene is the real actor screaming with blood pouring out of his head, and it looks to be the drill going through him. I don't know how they did it, but man, is it impactful. Like, you can't unsee that whenever you see it. And another scene in this movie that you can't unsee once you've seen it is there's a scene with this beautiful woman. I don't know the actress's name. I looked it up last night and promised myself I would remember, but it was super long in Italian. I don't remember, but she was beautiful and a really good actress, I thought, to boot. She's hooking up in the car with her boyfriend, and the priest figure appears, and he's staring her down, and you see that she's almost like she can't look away from him, and you see her eyes start to bleed a little bit. And I was like, oh man, that's a pretty cool effect. Little did I know the first time I watched this movie the effect that I was in for. She starts bleeding from her eyes, but then she starts coughing. And I'm like, oh, she's going to cough up blood. You know, I've seen that only 100,000 times in horror movies, coughing up blood. What else you got, Fulci? The answer is a lot. She starts to throw up all of her internal organs in correct anatomical order. I am not kidding you right now. She throws up an entire organ full of bodies. And what they did with the actresses, which blows my mind that you could get any actor, actress, whatever, to consent to this. They told her to put tripe in her mouth. And if you don't know what tripe is, it's sheep guts. She put real sheep guts in her mouth to make this scene look effective, and throw up real sheep guts from her mouth and just go in correct anatomical order, dude. So you see the lungs come out, you see the kidneys come out, you see the heart come out, you see gore galore, baby. And that's what Fulci's all about. Like, the first time I saw that scene, I was just like, holy crap. It's like you see a clown pulling a scarf out of his mouth, only if it was intestines and gory. It's badass. Yeah, Hannah loves it. It's badass. Like, that's everything I love to love in film, man. Because it's yeah, damn right. It's everything I love to love in film. Just because it's gross, don't get me wrong, but it's so well done. And they don't do stuff like that anymore. Now it would just be a CGI mask coming out of her mouth with black shit, probably. This was actual intestines. How they got the actors to agree, I'll never know. I don't know. There's no amount of money I would take to put actual sheep guts in my mouth. Like, I have some standards, all right? Maybe not the highest, but man, sheep guts, that's pretty gross. I always thought that was a really, really effectively done death scene. Really scared the hell out of me. And I just loved how the priest kind of had that effect. Like, if he looked at you too long, your eyes would start to bleed, and you'd start to literally just throw up your entire body from the inside out, basically turn you inside out. That is some scary shit. And that's why I love Lucio Fulci. I will say a common misconception for not even just Fulci, but a lot of Italian filmmakers is a lot of people will watch these movies and think, you know, they'll take an American style watching approach to it. And what I mean by that is they look for a really integral story, you know, really, really good characters, a big plot, stuff like that. You don't really get that in a lot of Italian films. Are there some? Absolutely. There are definitely some Italian horror films where you do get the plots, you do get the really good characters, stuff like that. But I dare to say that's not really the point of these kind of movies. Like, the beauty of these kind of movies is the creepy atmosphere, the creepy tension, stuff like that, and the gore and the music, the amazing music done in this by Fabio Frizzi, one of my favorite all-time horror movie guys for scores. He did the music in Zombie, he did the music in this, he did the music in The Beyond. Fabio Frizzi is just a master of Italian horror movie scores, and it is just so damn creepy anytime you hear the score in this. It's really good. It builds up almost like a moaning. It's like, da-na-na, and it builds up to this like awesome little, like, it feels like a 90s like video game crescendo. Do, 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 do. It's badass. Like, I can't explain it. I can't do it justice. I would play it on here if I wasn't copyrighted, but I would get copyrighted if I played it on here. It's badass music, though, I promise. Like, it's epic. And that's the beauty of Italian cinema, I think. Like, you watch a lot of these movies not for the acting, not for the cast, not for the storyline per se. It's really much more for the art of filmmaking, the art of cinema. And this is one of those movies I always think of when I think of that. It's just the stylistic looks of the graveyards. It's the stylistic feel and look of these undead creatures that just look so goddamn real. And it adds such a different dynamic to filmmaking. Like, I love Dawn of the Dead. It's my favorite movie of all time. The zombies in it look like they are straight from a comic book. That's why I love that movie. These zombies in this movie, and even in Fulci's zombie, they look like rotted, dead corpses. Like, they look legitimately like living dead corpses. And like, that's why I love Fulci. He was always going for that authentic style and look. And like, not a lot of American filmmakers will do stuff like that. And that's why I love City of the Living Dead, man. It's just the total package for what you're looking for in an Italian horror movie, and in any horror movie, to be honest with you. There's a badass, basically they all find out that they have to confront this priest and kill this priest before All Saints Day at midnight. And if they don't do that before All Saints Day at midnight, the entire graveyard will come back to life and start killing all the living. So they basically have a time frame where they have to get there. And it's this reporter and it's Catriona McCall, and they're going around. They basically all culminates in this graveyard where they fight the living dead and they confront the priest, where he looks in Catriona McCall's eyes as she starts to bleed the blood. And it's just epic. Like, it's one of my favorite finales in horror movie history. Every time you see it, no matter how many times you've seen it, the hair on your arms stand up and you get goosebumps up and down your spine. Like, it's just a really, really good finale horror movie. And I don't know, I just always really love this one. I also love the scene where they're talking and they're doing another seance, and these maggots, they actually shoot real maggots into their faces and stuff like that. They took a power fan. They took a big power fan and like thousands upon thousands of maggots. They put them on a table in front, started the power fan, and blew actual maggots onto these actors. Like, that's what it's all about, man. Fulci didn't give a shit. He didn't give a damn about what he was doing to the actors and actresses. He was just blowing real maggots on them. And like, I'll be honest, that adds such a visual, aspect and effect to it. I just really, really love that scene. And I just love every scene in this movie. I think this is an excellent movie if, you're someone who is not into Italian horror films. If you're trying to get into it, this is definitely one you should start with, because like I said, it really isn't about the plot or the story or the characters. It's really much more about that atmosphere, that tension, that vibe, that creepy vibe that I get throughout the entire thing of this movie. The shots of the graveyard. I believe they shot the exteriors for this somewhere in Georgia, I want to say. And like, I would be fooled, because it does not look like Georgia to me. There's something to the tint of this movie that it looks like it has like a gray wash to it. And it's just beautiful, man. It sets that tone. And I just love this movie. I think this is a great movie to watch around October. Lucio Fulci, City of the Living Dead, aka The Gates of Hell. I would give this one a solid 9 out of 10. Love this movie. My second favorite of the trilogy. Now, the second one is most people's favorite. This trilogy works a lot like the Star Wars trilogy, right? Where it's like City of the Living Dead, and the next one I'm supposed to talk about are New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. And then the last one, House by the Cemetery, is almost like Return of the Jedi, where, the first two are considered the almighty classics, and which one of the two do you like better? And then this movie is like, oh, well, it's good, but it's not as good as the other two. I will blow your mind when I get to this one, because this one's actually my favorite. I hate to say this, and I hate to piss all the Fulci and the Beyond marks off, but this one's always been my favorite. I can't help it. So it's one of those trilogies that works like that, and I always really thought it was kind of unique how it worked like that. But in 1981, Fulci came out with a little gem called The Beyond. I don't own The Beyond. It's actually on Showtime FOD for free. You can watch the movie in HD. The transfer is amazing. I highly recommend you give it a look if you have Showtime FOD. I mean, it's a fantastic looking movie. It's beautiful. And The Beyond, I'll be honest, of the three has always been my least favorite of the trilogy. I know a lot of people, it's their favorite, and all power to you. I mean, I think that it's a very good movie. But of these three, I don't know. It's definitely the one I go back to and watch the least. It's the only one of the three I don't own. I own own the other two. I actually wish I had gotten the Blu-ray of this, although the features on this are incredible. I got this and the Blu-ray came out like right after it. I was like, damn, why did I not just wait? I'll definitely upgrade these both someday to the 4K transfer. I know this one has the badass cover with the eye being stabbed, the little retro motion. I think that's an awesome badass cover. And apparently the edition is amazing. It looks really, really good on 4K transfer. But yeah, The Beyond, man. The Beyond is basically, it takes place in, I think it's New Orleans, and it's basically this hotel, and it's years and years ago, and this guy's getting whipped to death, and you don't know what's going on, you don't know what he did wrong, and basically because of this man being killed, it opens one of the 7 gates of hell in this hotel. And it's very similar to the plot of this movie, only it's in a hotel as opposed to like in a city, in a graveyard, stuff like that. It's very similar in plot and tone. And then it's years and years later, Catriona McCall and company are reopening this hotel, and the living dead are coming back and killing off the people that are working on the hotel, the people around the hotel, the people in the city. And it's more of just the same. But I would say that The Beyond is a movie that has a lot more batshit crazy stuff in it. For example, there's a scene where one of the workers in the hotel is killed by a zombie. And the mother and daughter, the daughter's like maybe, I want to say 12, they go into the morgue and they see their father lying there dead. And it's a pretty disturbing scene. And basically, one of the other corpses in the room comes back to life. And it scares the mother so bad, she steps back, slips, and bangs her head. She's unconscious. The next thing you see is this thing, a little jar of acid tip over, and it starts to pour on the mother's face. The effect they use is so amazing as this woman's face just deteriorates from the acid because she's knocked out. And her daughter is witnessing all of this, her 12-year-old daughter. And she's just like, holy shit, man. And it's like, I won't lie, man, it is hard to watch because you imagine seeing your mother just literally dissolve in front of you. And that is true horror. Fulci's thought of some dark stuff. That may be the darkest. That just always scared the hell out of me. I was always just like, holy Christ. And they show it all. They show her falling down. They show the slow deterioration. Then they show, when it gets to basically she has no skin left, to basically she's skeleton and bones, she's just completely deteriorated away. And I always thought, what a bad ass little scene there. That is how you execute a kill in a movie. And there's tons of really fun, batshit crazy stuff in this. Catriona McCall eventually runs across this blind girl who she has these awesome little white contacts in. And that's the big scene in this movie, I think. The big image people remember is that image of the blind girl standing in the middle of the road with her dog. I always thought that was a beautiful scene as Catriona McCall is just driving down the road and she sees this woman who's blind with these white contacts in with her dog. And she's just looks like she's just been through hell. And she's like, come sit with me and stuff like that. And there's a crazy ass death scene for that blind character where she's in the room, she's in the hotel, and there's 5 different corpses going at her at the same time. And she yells at her dog, kill him for me, kill him for me. And the dog's going after all the corpses and it's picking them off one by one. And it's badass. You're like, yo, my dog would do that for me, man's best friend, right? And it gets rid of all the zombies, surprisingly. You're like, oh man, she's going to live fine. It's all going to be good. Next thing you know, it bites her in the throat and rips her jugular out. I'm just like, holy crap. This dog went through all this hell to save her and ended up killing her. That's a plot twist that I always really, really appreciated because you never see it coming. You're just like, damn, Fulci, what the hell were you on at this time, dude? You got this woman's dog fighting for her honor, fighting for her life. But in reality, it was just fighting to be the one that got to be the one that killed her, right? Pretty crazy stuff, but I thought it was excellently executed here. The gore effects too, with her throat, man, it's just so, oh man, it's brutal. I don't think it's as good as the gore in this movie. I know a lot of people disagree, but I think the gore in this movie is the best of the 3. But man, the amount of gore that just pours out of her is just insane. There's also a scene where this jabroni guy, he's trying to find the history of this hotel and trying to figure out what happened, what we already know, basically. And he's in this library, he's on this ladder, and he's reading through the books, and basically he slips and falls off the ladder and cracks his head. And he's like, like weary, unconscious and stuff. And out of nowhere, these big ass tarantulas just crawl towards his body and he's motionless. He can't move. He's just all in a daze. And these spiders crawl up to him and just rip him apart. It's insane. It's an insane effect. Like, to me, to this day, it's one of the scariest film scenes ever because they used real tarantulas and they're crawling all over this guy's face. Oh yeah, Miranda. Miranda's loving this. She missed the part where I was talking about the sheep guts, Hannah. You should tell her about the sheep guts. That was some crazy shit. Actress put real sheep guts in her mouth, Miranda, just like you're doing right now. Miranda's eating lunch and talking about sheep guts. You know, this is what we do to our producers, although we love them very dearly. But yeah, man, I just love that scene. Like, it's just super gory. And it's literally just taking this guy apart piece by piece. Like, it bites his lip off. And you see the teeth marks and stuff of these tarantulas and stuff. Like, it is really scary stuff. Like, I think personally, it is a really, really well done death scene. And if you are afraid of spiders, I don't know if you can literally get through that scene. It is so scary. Miranda, you guys see the scene. No worries. You'll be fine, man. You'll be fine. Miranda's scared of spiders. Yeah. Miranda's a little scared of spiders, but it's all good. Yeah, I just love that scene. And I always thought the ending of this one was a little batshit crazy. I've never really been able to interpret the meaning of the ending with this one. The same thing with pretty much all three of these movies. This movie has a weird ending too. I don't want to get into it. It's kind of a spoiler, but like this one too, like City of Living Dead, I think has a really weird ending. And The Beyond is no different. The Beyond is basically they're in this hospital towards the end, and this guy has a gun and he's shooting all the zombies one by one, him and Catriona McCall, and they basically find their way down to this basement. And it's just out of nowhere, randomly, it becomes this open landscape. It almost looks like another world that they open the basement door to. And they look at each other and they're looking, and then they basically just vanish and the credits roll. The first time I saw that, I was just like, what the hell? Like, what is the meaning of this ending? I know a lot of people have come into interpretations of what that ending means. However, I feel like with all three of these Gates of Hell movies, I feel like all three of the endings are pretty ambiguous. Like, I don't know if there really is a true meaning to be found there. I love that they leave them ambiguous to let fans go, oh, I think this is what happened. Like, I love that. I think that really keeps it fresh. And Fulci was genius for doing that. But I don't know if there really is anything to find with the ending of this movie. Like, they just kind of evaporate into the beyond. And like, I remember the first time I saw this, I was just like, huh, like, that's a weird way to end your film. I do have some gripes with this one. I will be honest. I think at times of the three, this one feels the slowest. And everyone will argue and say House by the Cemetery is the slowest. I beg to differ. The Beyond is much slower, I think. It's a quick film, but it is definitely slower in pace, I think, than this movie. And man, I don't know, like, there's just some batshit crazy stuff in The Beyond. It's a really fun visual movie to watch again. It looks really good in high def. And I highly recommend you watch The Beyond, but I will be honest, like, I'm not going to go, just appease the fans and tell the fans what they want to hear here. I definitely think of the three, it is by far the weakest. And I did give it a rewatch. It's not like one of those things where, maybe you should give it a rewatch. I rewatched it 3 days ago. I feel the exact same about it. Has some amazing gore, has an amazing score, has really, really good creepy imagery in it. I will never, as long as I live, forget that girl with the blind girl with those white eyes. And I know a good friend of mine, he actually has a tattoo of that on his back, like his left shoulder. He has a tattoo of that character. I was just like, that's how much people love these movies. And like, it goes to show you, man, it doesn't matter. Story does not matter in horror movies all the time. Like, this is one of those movies that proves it. There's really no story to this. It's just batshit crazy scene after batshit crazy scene. But it's just so memorable that you can't unsee it once you've seen it. And like, that goes the same for all three of these Gates of Hell movies. I just think it's fantastic. The look, the feel, and this one, a lot of people will say has the best feel, but I don't know. I would go with the one I'm about to review next. But The Beyond, it's a really, really good one to watch around this time of year. Most diehard Fulci fans will tell you it's the best. I say of this trilogy, it's my weakest. I'm going to go and come in at about a 7 out of 10 with this one. I really do enjoy it. It's a fun time. Highly recommend. But this brings us to the Return of the Jedi of this trilogy, my favorite one of this trilogy. And actually, on my top horror movie list, this is number 15 of all time. This isn't my top 15 horror movie list, and it's actually, the first one on that list. And it is Lucio Fulci's The House by the Cemetery, one of my favorite all-time horror movies. I think this is a goddamn masterpiece and a half. Basically, a little bit of background about this one. What people don't know about this movie is, well, you can play. I mean, you can rewind it back to all the way to this film, Zombie. Zombie was really Fulci's attempt to rip off Dawn of the Dead, and then he really came into his own, I think, with as a horror filmmaker. Oh, cool. Okay, Horror Boy. I have Steelbook of the Beyond. Haven't seen it all the way through. I seen Living Dead a year ago. Don't remember much besides some gore, good direction. I got to check it out again. Out of Fulci Zoom. Tell Nate rock on. You can tell him in the chat. Tell rock on and shout out to you, even though you can hear me say that. So shout out to Nate. Thank you for watching, buddy. Miranda just showed me the comments. I don't have the comments here, so I can't see. My lovely producers are here to tell me that. And I was thankfully got to read it all. But it all goes back. It all goes back to this movie where Fulci really came into his own and found that atmospheric stride, and City of Living Dead is a perfect movie because of that. And then The Beyond is more upon that. And a lot of people think he even outmastered himself with that. But House by the Cemetery, what people don't realize is, oh, rock on, brother Nate. Thank you for watching. The thing I love about House by the Cemetery is it's Fulci's answer to The Shining. A lot of people don't realize that, but this movie is very similar in tone, in atmosphere, in look, in vibe, in pacing, the slow burn pacing to The Shining. It basically tells the story of this family, the Boyle family, and they move into this house by the cemetery. And it used to be 100 years ago owned by this crazy, crazy doctor called Dr. Freudstein. And Dr. Freudstein did all sorts of experiments on these humans, on his wife, on his kids, on all sorts of people. And basically they move into the house, and it's a slow burn kind of haunted house movie where all shit starts hitting the fan. And by the final act, I mean, you just have one batshit crazy movie. And I don't know, man. I think this is Fulci's best film. Like, I love this movie to no end. I do not get the hate for it. Getting into some of my favorite scenes, the opening scene right off the bat, it's incredible. It's a boyfriend and girlfriend. They're having sex in this house. It's like any slasher movie opening, right? It's just these boyfriend and girlfriend wanting to have fun. They're having sex in this house, and she's putting up her shirt, and she's like, where are you? Where are you? Let's go now. We got a business done. She's walking throughout the house, and there's creepy vibes, just quiet, no music, just cobwebs, and just this creepy atmosphere builds. And she closes this door, and behind her boyfriend is hanging on a hook, all dead, all mutilated. And she turns around and sees this, screams, and gets this knife right in the back of her head, through her mouth, through her teeth. Looks like she's flossing with a goddamn butcher's knife. It's unbelievably done. Like, it is such an amazingly executed opening kill. She falls to the ground, and then you get one of the most badass horror movie scores as you see The House by the Cemetery and the title. It's incredible. It's like, it's badass. Like, I've seen many, many rock and roll covers of it. It's such a great, creepy ass score. I do not believe it was Fabio Frizzi. It was a guy named Walter Rizzati. Walter, you made one of the goddamn best horror movie scores of all time. You topped Fabio Frizzi's, like his two scores in these two movies. He topped them with this. Like, it's incredible how good and creepy the score is. I think it's arguably the best horror movie score of all time. Just such great music. And there are some scenes of premonitions that Bob has, the kid of the family of the Boyles. He keeps seeing this little girl, and she's warning him not to go to the house. Don't go to the house. Like, only bad things are going to happen there. In a lot of similar vein to the two twins from The Shining. Like, come play with us, Danny, forever and ever and ever. That's in this movie, like he has the little girl warning her. But I dare to say, man, some of the visuals in this are right up there with The Shining. And a lot of people will go, you're batshit crazy. I'm not saying there's a better movie than The Shining. It's not a better movie than The Shining. But I will say, if any movie has ever come close, it's this one. Don't watch that new Doctor Strange shit. Don't watch that. Watch this movie. This is a better follow-up to The Shining. If you want to see a movie like The Shining that is not The Shining, this is the goddamn movie to see. There's a scene where you see this mannequin, and it's just standing in the store window, and it falls over, and the head falls off, and this blood falls out. And I always thought, that's a creepy image. Later on in the film, just randomly, this person who looks exactly like the mannequin shows up, and her name is Anne. And she's like, "Oh, I'm here. I'm going to house sit Bob. I'm going to house sit your kid all the time when you guys are at work." And it's super goddamn random, like for them to just accept it. But it works for some reason because this lady is creepy, but yes, she's beautiful at the same time. The actress's name is Ania Pironi. I hope I'm saying that right. She was also in Tenebrae as actually the mother of tears in that brief scene in the lecture hall. She was in Tenebrae. She's one of the first victims in Tenebrae. She was in, I'm sorry, she was in Inferno as the mother of tears. I'll get it right here, folks. She did a couple Argento films. She did a couple Fulci films, and man, she's beautiful in this movie as the nanny, and like she's kind of just creepy. And she's kind of up to no good, but like the character, they never really questioned the character, which I love. That's so Fulci. Like, I'm not going to question what she's up to. I'm just going to let her be up to it. I'm just going to let her do it, man. And I always really liked that. I always thought that was a really funny kind of thing this movie did. But yeah, again, man, some of the scenes in this are just incredible. Like, this is one of those movies I like to watch just for the aesthetic. Like, this is, of all Fulci's movies, I think the one that has the best aesthetic. There are just scenes of him where he'll show shots of the house. You'll see the staircase. You'll see a hallway. You'll see the carpet. You'll see the basement. There's this classic door to the basement that has this big old lock on it, like a castle lock. And you need this big key to open it and go down to the basement. And I remember as a kid seeing this one, just thinking, like, what is in that basement? Like, what are we in store for? And the answer does not let you down. I won't, spoil everything here, but like, I always thought that the ending of this movie really does live up to that slow burn kind of payoff feel. And I don't know, man. Like, I think the cinematography in this movie is top notch. Sergio Salvati, I actually nominated him for a Carrie Award back when I did my horror award show last semester here. I just think the guy is a phenomenal DOP, and I think the cinematography in this movie is some of the best in the history of horror movies. Like, I would say top 5 cinematography movie. It just looks sparkling, especially on this Blu-ray. I know a lot of people were let down by this Blu-ray. I think it looks incredible personally. And this is one of those movies, no matter how many editions of it they release, I will continue to buy and rebuy it because I think it's a timeless horror movie. I think, what gets a lot of people with a lot of Fulci films is the bad dubbing. And I will say there is some bad dubbing in this, but the coolest thing about this Blu-ray is you can turn on the Italian mono version. So yeah, the Italian mono version where you get all of the actors' initial voices and you read the subtitles throughout the movie. Personally, when I watch this, I watch the Italian mono version. The sound isn't as good, I know, but I don't have to hear the annoying dubbing over Bob's voice because it's so bad in the American version. Like, it literally can ruin the movie for people. I've talked to people where that kid's dubbing is so bad where they literally will turn the movie off. Watch the Italian mono version. You get the kid's real voice. He's not half as annoying, and you can really appreciate the beautiful style, look, and feel to this movie. There's just some incredible gore scenes in this too, where they're trying to sell the house. Katrina McCall knows that there's shit going down in this house, and she wants out pretty much from the word go. And she's pleading with her husband, played by, I believe his name is Paolo Malco. He plays the husband in this, and she's pleading with him, please, we have to leave this house. There's something not right. And it has that classic haunted house movie feel where they want to move, but they can't. And the people that they're trying to sell, like the real estate agent comes to the house and she gets murdered. And it's kind of like they try to film it like a whodunit, but you obviously know it's Dr. Freudstein doing the kid. Like, it's not, I remember one of the DVDs, it's actually, I think this Blue Underground, the DVD version, not the Blu-ray version. It's a picture of Dr. Freudstein on the cover. So who's doing, it's like a super spoiler, but I always thought that was funny. It's not one of those things that like ruins the movie or anything. It's Dr. Freudstein from the word go. But you don't really see him until the end. The spoiler is seeing the design of Dr. Freudstein, which is an incredible design. I thought it one of the best like zombie kind of designs ever. Really, really creepy looking. He kills this one lady, the real estate lady. He rips her throat out, and you watch as this is more stylistic kill. Her blood hits the floor, and you see it kind of it's spreading all over the place. But there's a big rectangle where the blood spreads around, and you notice that's like a trap door to the basement. That's pretty cool, and that comes in effect later in the movie. Like he's able to set up all these little kind of Easter eggs, nooks and crannies where you can go, okay, we're going to get back to that. Okay, that's going to play a factor later in this movie. And I love that personally. I think that's really, really cool that Fulci did that with this. And man, this movie, it looks so crisp. It has some really fun scenes in it. There's a scene where this flying bat attacks Paolo Malco's character, and this bat is biting his hand, and he just takes a knife and just stabs the bat while it's on his hand, and it's a bad effect, but man, the blood and it's just so fun to watch. The effect looks super bad in this great HD transfer because you're just like you can tell it's all fake and stuff. But man, I really enjoy that. And I always thought the finale was really cool with this movie. Basically, you have Ennio Pironi. She goes down to the basement because Bob is screaming for her, and she actually gets decapitated, and her head rolls down the steps right in front of the kid, and the kid just screams like he loses his shit. He's like, ah! He runs back up the door, and he's trying to get out of the door, but the door's jammed, and the mother and father they're trying to get in, trying to save him, stuff like that, and the corpse is actually starts trying to stab Bob, and it's just missing him, man. It's so well done. How close the knife gets to Bob's face and his sheer face of horror. And man, like it's some risque stuff. Like you don't do that nowadays with kids. Like you make sure that there was a standee or a double or something. But Fulci really goes for it. Fulci was never one to hold back or hit the brakes. He's always on the gas pedal. And that's why I freaking love Lucio Fulci. Like I said, again, you get a crazy ass finale where the mother, the father, and Bob all confront Dr. Freudstein and kind of battle him. I will be honest, I could not believe the ending when I first saw this movie. Like I thought it was actually like shocking, to be honest. Not in the best of way, because I still don't know what they mean by the ending. I won't give into the full spoiler, but the last thing we see in the movie is a little quote that says, "We'll never know if monsters are children or children are monsters." That's the final quote of this film. As you see Bob and the little girl from the premonitions earlier will kind of walk off. I don't understand what that means. Like, I don't understand. Were they behind it? Did they cause it? Were they some sort of experiment gone wrong for Dr. Freudstein? Like, I have never been able to figure it out. I've watched this movie about 100 times. I still don't know what the ending means. Like, I have no clue. Apparently, Fulci really hated children, so maybe that's what he thought. Like, maybe it was just like, screw children. I don't know. But if that was his feeling, then why did the children survive? Like, I don't know. Like, I've read a lot of people say, oh, that's totally what he was going for. I'm just like, then why were they like the two survivors? Like, why did they make it and everyone else died? It makes no sense. But these movies don't have to make sense. I love this movie. I think it's a perfect horror movie. I say it's a 10 out of 10. I have a really, really good time with it. It's scary. It's gory. It's a perfect slow burn. It's beautiful to look at. It has such a cool aesthetic to it. And it's one that I always go back and watch. I will watch it, last week of October, maybe even a Halloween night movie for me. I just really, really love The House by the Cemetery. For me, this one gets a perfect score, 10 out of 10. I think it's one of the best horror movies of all time. And I would argue it is easily Fulci's most underrated movie. So City of Living Dead comes in at a 9 out of 10. The Beyond, which I don't own, is a 7 out of 10. And then this one, my favorite one, comes in at a 10 out of 10, The House by the Cemetery, a perfect film. I got about 6 minutes left here. I figured I'd discuss like some of the movies I've been watching around this time of the year. I've been literally watching about 2 to 3 a day. It's insane. An average of pretty much 2 a day I've been watching. The other day I actually rewatched the first Candyman. The legendary Candyman with Tony Todd. And man, I just freaking love that movie. I think it's a really, really good sort of urban legend movie with Virginia Madsen, of course, playing the lead. She's beautiful. And I love some of her interactions and chemistry with Tony Todd. It's a movie that was actually a year coming out of The Silence of the Lambs, which is a movie that really focused heavily on the interaction between Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins. I think that Candyman has some great interactions with Virginia Madsen and Tony Todd as the Candyman and the final girl, and they're kind of going back and forth. And it was always you, Helen. Like, I always thought that was some creepy stuff. Easily Tony Todd's like best performance. I love Tony Todd in those movies. He's just so goddamn scary. I always thought the origin story was really, really well done too, where Tony Todd was this, he worked on this farm, and the plantation owner didn't like him, and because he was black, and basically Tony Todd got into a relationship with his daughter. She got pregnant, and the entire town went after kill Tony Todd. They cut his hand off and covered him in honey, and the bees came to kill him. And then 100 years later, he's the Candyman. If you say his name 5 times in the mirror, Candyman comes to get you. And I always thought, what a brilliant urban legend to come up with. And I've actually read the Clive Barker short story, The Forbidden, which Candyman is based off of. And it actually has none of that in it. You would actually not know Candyman was black. I think it's actually implied that he was a white character in the short story. But that's one thing where I think the film did it a lot better, because adding that extra layer on it, it makes you feel sympathetic for your killer. And therefore, when your killer has a little bit of remorse, it's a lot easier to watch him do the things that he does. And I think Candyman's an all-time classic horror movie because of that. I know that Jordan Peele's remaking it, and it bothers me to no goddamn end that Jordan Peele has to touch that movie. Like, just let it be. Like, please, Jordan Peele, like, if you ever see this, don't remake Candyman. Like, don't do it, because you're going to miss the goddamn point. The point of that movie is it's a scary urban legend film about a man that was wronged. That's all it has to be about. He's going to get into politics and politics and politics. We don't want to see politics in a Candyman film. We want to see the Candyman popping some good one-liners, scaring the shit out of people, some creepy atmospheric tension-filled scenes. And that's all. That's all we got to see. We know the backstory. And yet they'll remake it and explain the backstory again. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And, in that similar vein, I rewatched the sequel, Candyman 2, Farewell to the Flesh. And that movie is garbage. It really is garbage. It's all right. Is it the worst movie ever? No, but it's one of those sequels that they just repeat everything in the original. They tell the story of legend again. They're trying to figure it out again. They're doing all this again and again and again. And like, there's nothing really new it brings. The kills aren't as good. It's not really a well-paced movie. It's very boring and dull in spots. And I don't know. I didn't like the lead as much. I thought Kelly Rowan was okay, but she was no Virginia Madsen. I thought Virginia Madsen was incredible. Candyman 2 is bad. And then Candyman 3 is like the bottom of the barrel. I didn't rewatch that one. I don't know if I can rewatch that one. I mean, that's a piece of trash movie too. Like, that's why I'm really worried about a Candyman remake. Don't do it, Jordan Peele. Like, just please stick to your original horror movies. You can be as political as you want because that's what you like to do. That's his style. I understand. I respect it. But man, stay the hell away from Candyman. Like, I don't want to see Jordan Peele's Candyman at all, because he's going to totally miss the point. He's going to think politics and he's not going to think anything else. And like, I don't appreciate that look on that style of film. I feel like the original Candyman is a perfect movie. I don't think it can be topped. Therefore, I don't see a reason to remake it. That you can't improve upon perfection. And that first Candyman movie, Tony Todd, Virginia Madsen, Bernard Rose, the director, who I think did a great job, even though they shit on him to no end in that horror noir documentary on Shudder. They shit on him to no end. They say, oh, he was a racist and all that. I'm like, yo, he wasn't a racist, man. He wrote in the backstory that Clive Barker didn't write in. People give credit to Clive Barker for that, but Bernard Rose was actually the guy that came up with the Candyman backstory. Yet he's a racist, right? Makes no goddamn sense. I don't know. I don't understand people. If you think that movie is racist and you think that movie is needs to be remade, whatever. But I kindly disagree. I think the original Candyman's a fantastic movie and a perfect one to watch around this time. But so wrapping up here, I got about a minute left. I rewatched like Waxwork. I had a lot of fun with Waxwork, and talk about that one maybe on the next show in a little bit more detail. Dead End, I watched. Jeepers Creepers 1 and 2. I watched Imprint with a couple of my buddies. That was a really fun night. They were all mind blown by that movie. And I've been rewatching some Twilight Zone, some Tales from the Dark Side, some Addams Family, some Monsters. I've been rewatching anything and everything horror related. It's the best month of the year. And it's just fantastic because of that. But that's going to be all for my show today. I wanted to thank everybody for watching. Long live Lucio Fulci, one of the great horror movie Italian godfathers of gore that ever lived. And it was super fun to put these movies over and talk about them on the show. I definitely want to do an Argento sometime down the road. I want to do an Argento episode. But thank you all for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. Long live Lucio Fulci. I'm going to pop House by the Cemetery in as soon as I get home. But that is all for now. I am the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names and kicking ass. This has been John Grani on the Ram Nation Radio app, YouTube Live, and I'll catch y'all later, ladies and gentlemen. Too sweet, baby. Woo, baby. Fun show.